Hi, Noha.
Hi, Donna. Sorry, I was able to.
How are you feeling today? Better?
I'm better, but I'm a bit anxious. I don't know if it's related to the detox or to personal matters. I'm not sure.
Is anxiety something you typically experience, or is this a completely new feeling?
No, it's not new.
Okay.
I'm a cancer survivor. My therapist told me that it's probably I got cancer because of hidden traumas. And
Mm.
I got very good therapy and I overcame everything in the past. And he told me I'm okay. But
Alhamdulillah.
of course, anxiety is part of my life. Yeah. And I have to navigate through it.
This is
And I'm going
yeah,
through some extra stress at work. So
yeah. Okay. Um, I have lots of things to say about this. So anxiety or anything that's labeled that goes back to sort of mental health or emotional health is not just about the strength of your mental state or emotional state. Um, about 90% of your serotonin, which is your happy hormone that helps to regulate your moods and helps to stabilize anxiety and depression and mood swings, 90% of that is produced in the gut. So, and this is finally being coming to, I mean, as alternative practitioners, we've known this all along, but it's finally starting to become a conversation in mainstream that if you're
yeah, she's back.
Okay. Okay. Bye.
internet is, there we go. Okay. I'm gonna just see if I can hotspot myself. My internet has been acting up all day. Hi, Rania. Um,
Hi.
so I was having a little conversation with Noha, those of you who aren't here. Noha, is it okay for me to repeat what we were saying together?
Yeah, it's totally fine.
So Noha was telling me that she's feeling a little bit anxious. Hi, Roba. She's feeling a little bit anxious. So I said, is this something new that's just come up in the detox, or is anxiety something you experienced before on a regular basis? So she told me, yes, it is something she does experience, and she's had sort of a history of trauma, and she's a cancer survivor. And it is believed one of the reasons that she got cancer is because of unresolved emotions and trauma and all of that. So I was trying to give her, I don't know whether she's heard this or not before, but I was trying to give her the holistic picture when it comes to anxiety and emotions and your mental state. And this actually, sort of goes straight into what we're going to be talking about today. When we look at the health of your emotional state, the health of your mental state, it's not it's not in your head. It's not just about what's happening with your thoughts and with your emotions. We know that, roughly, and this is a huge percentage, 90% of your serotonin, which is your happy hormone, is actually produced in the gut. It's not something that's regulated up here. It's something that's produced in the digestive system. So when your digestive system is overburdened. I'm talking about the whole system. And it's overburdened the way that we've been discussing the past couple of weeks. And it doesn't have the raw materials. Like, consider it as a factory. It does produce hormones. And it doesn't have the raw materials to be able to produce any kind of hormone that you need in order to function optimally. It won't be able to produce the enough serotonin for you to have stable moods, for you to not be anxious, for you to not be depressed, for you to not have any kind of instability when it comes to your mental and emotional health. So the first source, and we get to the root cause, yeah, you have external triggers for trauma, 100%. You have people in your lives, you have events in your lives that will trigger you to feel anxious, to feel sad, to feel depressed. But in the same way, that toxins can't take hold in an alkaline, acidic free environment. Emotional diseases also can't take hold in a terrain that is producing serotonin optimally. And somebody who's processing their emotions the way that they should be, processing and releasing. So this is one side of it. So once you start to clear out your digestive system, once you start to feed it the fuel that it needs, it's going to jumpstart the production of your serotonin, which is suppressed before. I had a lady who used to have 13 panic attacks a day. I don't know how that even looks like, but 13 panic attacks a day. And once she went through the program, she was having 0. They just stopped. Her body rebalanced, her digestive system, her factory for producing serotonin and balancing her moods stopped, jump-started the production of the serotonin. And then she, of course, added the element that we're adding in today, which is your intentional approach to your thoughts and your thought process and the kinds of thoughts you're allowing to run the show when it comes to your life, and allow the kind of you allow certain thoughts that naturally lead to certain types of feelings. And then if you don't process those feelings, just like food toxins can become toxic in the body. They can lead to disease. So disease is not just about what you're eating and what you're drinking and what you're putting on your skin, those, chemicals, what you might be breathing from the air. Your emotions and the way you process your emotions, or if you don't process your emotions, can also lead to disease. We have definitely seen people who do everything right, eat everything right, detox their bodies, but they don't know how to also detox their emotions. They are envious, they are angry, they hold on to grief, they hold on to resentment, they're continuously sad, even though their gut technically should be producing the serotonin to put them in a good mood. What you're going to learn today is the power of your thoughts. They're not able to shift their thoughts, they're not able to process their emotions, and they can get cancer even when they're not eating any inflammatory foods or very minimal inflammatory foods, where if you just look at that, you'd wonder, this is really strange. Why did this person get sick? Look at how they're eating and living. It's because they haven't looked at this last piece, which is crucial, which is your emotions and your thoughts and how you process them. So we can't see you. You guys can't see me?
That was in the beginning, I think.
Oh, okay. All right, just making sure. I do have a little bit of a glitch with my internet today, so I apologize in advance if it cuts. I'll keep coming back. All right, so today you have pen and paper, pencil and paper. We are tackling exactly that today, which is the thought process. It is not enough to eat all the broccoli and the asparagus and the lettuce and the inflammatory foods. They are one piece of a bigger puzzle. We've removed the food toxins. We're going to remove the non-food toxins, which are the chemicals in your beauty products and all of that. There's not much you can do about whatever you might be breathing in or ingesting from the air around you. You try and minimize that as much as possible. But the only other factor in healing that is 100% in your control, the same way as removing food toxins and non-food toxins, is what's going on in here between your ears. So today I'm going to teach you something called the thought model. I didn't make this up. You guys can look it up. It is a technique I learned from my mindset coaches around understanding to what degree your thoughts rule how you function every single day in your life, and to what degree we're not aware of the thoughts that are controlling our lives, and then to what degree we have such great power by using this exercise to recognize the thoughts that are not serving us and to turn them around so that we can get a different result in our life. Humans have something like 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. It's a crazy number, and none of us will ever be conscious of every single thought that goes through our head. There are thoughts, however, that sort of linger on, are ones we do pay attention to, and then we take action based on those thoughts, and it's those actions that give us whatever quality of life we're living. If you constantly tell yourself, I can't do something, that's a thought. Or if you constantly tell yourself, I'm stuck, I'm struggling. Or if you're also saying, I'm happy, I'm working on something, I'm challenged by something, but I will get there eventually. This person is really annoying. This person is irritating me. This situation is giving me anxiety. Every single one of those is a thought. And just think of how many of these you have during the day around every situation that you're in, around every personal encounter that you have. We don't know how many we're actually having, how many we're actually conscious of. But here's what's even more important than that, is not just because you're having the thought means the thought is true. Doesn't mean the thought is correct, doesn't mean it's true. But that also, and you're not aware of that. So you keep having the same thought. And remember what we talked about on the first day, your critter brain, that subconscious that is always listening to you, it's always listening to these thoughts. So whatever kind of thought you're having, whether it's one that's going to move you forward in the direction that you want in your life, or you're not aware that it's actually holding you back, that's what your subconscious mind is listening to. And any kind of thought that you have automatically elicits a feeling. So when you feel like somebody is irritating you, then you feel, you tell yourself, this person is really irritating. How do you think you're going to feel if your perception of somebody irritating you is that they're giving you an energy of irritation? Are you going to be happy? Are you going to be excited? Are you going to be motivated when you tell yourself so-and-so is irritating me, or this situation is really challenging? Right away, there is a corresponding emotion to every single thought that you have. And that corresponding emotion is what propels you to either take action, and this is going to become much more clear when I describe the model. That feeling is what's going to propel you to either take an action or not. Every single action we take in our life comes from a feeling that was triggered by a thought that was a response to a situation. And we end up with a result most of the time unaware that we had a thought that was probably not true, probably incorrect. And then we had a thought about it, and then that thought elicited a feeling, and we ended up, because a feeling is very natural, it bubbles up. You don't question your feelings. If you're sad, you're sad. If you're angry, you're angry. If you're anxious, you're anxious. But those are what you're feeling right before you take action on something. So what the thought model does is it forces you to pick one situation at a time. You're becoming very intentional. You make the decision that, right, here's an area of my life where I'm not seeing results, or where I keep coming up against a wall no matter what I do. But you're not aware that the reason for that is because there's an underlying thought that is running the show. And you haven't pinpointed that thought yet, much less pinpointed the feeling that comes from that thought. And you just keep trying to do the same thing over and over and over again to get a different result. And you think that just taking different action is going to get you a different result without looking at the deep root cause, which is the initial thought about this situation. So take out, this is all going to become more clear as I teach you this practice. So take out a pen and paper, or pencil and paper, and I want you to divide your paper in half down the line, down the middle. And at the top, write thought model, because this is what it is. And then in the first line, write circumstance. Second line, write thoughts in both columns. Third line is feelings. Fourth line is action, inaction. And then result. So 2 columns, you have the same titles written for each one. Circumstance, thought, feeling, action/inaction. Last one is result. All right. So what is a circumstance, thought, feeling, action, inaction, result? A circumstance is when you start to want to pinpoint an area of your life. And this is what the thought model is used for. You don't just use it for every single thought you have or anything. It's specifically when there's something going on in your life that you're just not seeing the results for. So you're not getting the traction for. You keep getting stuck with. The circumstance is the situation that you feel is causing you to be stuck. And that circumstance can be a person, it can be a place, it can be a thing, it can be an event. The most important thing to remember about this circumstance when we're doing this exercise is that for both columns on this side and this side, when you decide on your circumstance in the first column, it's going to be the same in the second column. These thoughts and feelings and actions, we have an initial sort of data that you're going to put down here, and those are going to change in the second column. But a circumstance is something that we cannot change. And this is where people get stuck, because we feel like if we can change the person who's irritating us, if we can change the situation that's making us depressed, if we can change the thing that's happening that we're having a reaction to, then that's where we solve the problem. We cannot change a circumstance. It is not changeable. So if your issue is with a spouse or a boss or world events, you cannot change it. What the thought model does is it changes you to change your perception of it. Think of a circumstance exactly like a movie. And let's say all of you, Jahan and Rania and Jahan and Ruba and Noha, you're all going to go watch the same exact movie. And I'm sure you've all had this experience. You go with a whole bunch of friends or family to watch a movie. It's the same exact movie, but you all come out of the movie. One person hates it. One person loves it. One person is inspired. One person could never be bothered to think about this movie again, but it's the same exact movie. So think of the circumstances in your life as that. They're unchangeable. What you're going to change is your perception of this circumstance and how you think about it and how you feel about it. So once you write down the circumstance, the next step is to think about the first thought you have about this circumstance. And then you're going to think about, right, here's my thought about it. What feeling bubbles up for me when I have this thought about this circumstance? And then what do I usually do when I get this feeling or don't do? And then what's the result that I end up with? That's what we do in the first column. So it's really important that we see the result that we're getting, and it's typically not one that's serving you. And then when we go to the second side, we start with the result first. We work it backwards. Like if this is the result that I want in my life, then what is the action I need to be taking that I'm not taking on this side in order to get to this result? And what is the feeling I need to be feeling in order to take this action that I'm not feeling here? And then it goes back to right. So in order for me to feel this way, I need to change this thought to this thought. This doesn't change. Let's do one as an example so it can be more clear. Let's use this detox as the circumstance, right? It's here, you're in it, you can't change it, you have to do it. So you would write circumstance, detox, circumstance, detox. What is, and one of you give me an example here, the first thought you had when you saw the eating plan for this detox? One single thought. No.
It's hard to.
It's hard, period. That's a thought, okay? So you would write, it's hard. That's your thought about the circumstance, which is the detox. The only way you'd be able to change the detox if you decided to leave the program. But if you've committed and you're in the program and you decided, I am going to see this through, then you can't change it. But your first thought is, this is hard. What feeling came up for you, Noha, when you thought this is hard?
I felt scared.
Scared. And then what happens when you're scared? Are you going to wake up and are you going to go buy your groceries? And are you going to stop ordering your coffee or your tea? Or are you going to throw away the coffee and tea that you have at home? Are you going to open up your cupboards and get rid of the inflammatory foods? Are you going to start making the celery and the smoothie when you're scared?
Well, I had to.
Let's say you didn't have to. And let's say that
I remember I froze in the first day at bed. I couldn't get out.
Perfect. So you felt it's hard. Your thought was it's hard. Your feeling was I'm scared. And so you froze.
Yeah, I froze.
You froze. And what was the result that first day? Did you do anything?
The first day, no, I didn't.
There you go. Perfect example. So her thought was, and this is what everybody goes through, and this is very, very, very natural. There's no way that you can go from thinking it's hard to having a positive feeling to then going to taking an empowering action that's going to give you the result that you want. So this is a perfect example. It's hard, I'm scared, frozen, did nothing. So let's pretend this is still your first day, Noha, okay? And we need to, and I'm teaching you the thought model on the first day, and we need to completely transform this because we don't want you to do nothing. We want the result is to do the detox and to succeed on the detox. You join this program not to do nothing. You join this program to succeed and potentially, to get more specific, whatever symptoms you have, you want to get rid of those symptoms. If you're frozen and you're scared because you think it's hard, you'll continue to not take any action. You're not going to be able to get the results that you want. So once you filled this side out, then we go to this side and we start with the result. The result that Noha wants is, let's say, to heal. So in order for you to heal, requires you to take what action?
Buy the ingredients and eat them.
Exactly. Follow
Yeah.
the process. Go do my grocery shopping, go make the recipes. What kind of feeling do you think you need to have that's going to propel you to go and prepare and spend time in your kitchen and make the vegetables and make the juices and make the smoothies? What kind of a feeling do you think you need to have?
Optimistic.
Optimistic, maybe excited,
Excited, yeah.
right? So what thought then do you have to have about the detox? That's not, it's hard. What thought do you have to have that's going to bring up the feeling of excitement for you in your body?
It's useful.
It's useful. Can you think of, when you think of something is useful, does that bring up excitement for you?
Not really, but I think happiness.
Happiness is a feeling.
Happy.
Don't confuse thoughts with
yeah.
feelings, okay? So a thought is a few words that will generate a feeling. You want to generate the feeling of excitement. When you think something is useful, does that bring up excitement for you?
No, not really.
Your initial thought was it's hard, and that made you scared. You can see the correlation between the two. It's something that's hard can definitely make you feel scared. But if you want to feel excited, what do you need to tell yourself so that you can feel excited? And this is the part that
I'm gonna heal. That's gonna work.
it's going to work. I'm going to heal. Yes, that's the thought. So this is the part in this whole practice that changes everything, is when you go back and figure out, I'm going to remove the initial thought that left me frozen with no action. I'm going to replace it with a thought that makes me feel excited, that propels me to go out and do the grocery shopping and make the recipes so that I can heal. This is something that requires time. You can't do this process in your head. It does require you to sit down with a pen and paper. There is a connection between your brain and your hands when you're writing something. And it could take you several tries. Like, the first thing she said was, it's useful. But you need to think about it. Like, is useful really the thought that's going to give me the action? No. So it might take you a few goes. Once you get the hang of it, this process can take you 5 minutes, and it can take you from having thought a thought about a circumstance for many years to having a completely different thought in the short span of 5 minutes, the one that you're going to act on. Where does the thought go under feeling? The thought goes under thought. So the circumstance is a thing you can't change, right? You're presented with this thing, Yoruba, a person, a situation, an event in the world, anything. And the first thing that you think about it, that's your thought. You write that down under thought. Thoughts are not feelings. So don't get confused. If you're presented with a circumstance and the first thing you think of, I'm scared, that's your feeling. That's not a thought. You need to think about what is the thought sentence that doesn't have a feeling in it. Thoughts are not feelings. They're statements. And then the feeling comes in the line after that. And then you think about, well, what happens? What do I do when I'm feeling this feeling? Do I take action or not? And what is it? And what's the result that I get? Who wants to give me another example of a circumstance? Anything that's happening in your life, and we can work through it so this becomes a little bit more clear. Could be your job, could be your spouse, could be your kids, could be world events. The thought model is very effective, but it's easy to avoid doing it because it brings to light to what extent everything that's happening in your life has always been your responsibility. It's very easy for us at default setting, natural default setting, that we want to blame the circumstance for its effect on our life. We all want to blame others for something that's happening to us. He made me depressed. He caused me to, yell out and lose my temper. My boss is the one that's making me miserable at work. The world events are so awful that I feel like I just can't function. I just can't work. But when you do a thought model, you realize that no matter how difficult the circumstance is, the result you're getting around this circumstance has always been and will always be up to you. How you change your perception and your thoughts and your feelings so that you can get a result that serves you. And this is one reason that people avoid doing the thought model, because it's hard to take responsibility for your feelings and your actions, especially when it's clear to you that it's always been somebody else who's the cause of your unhappiness or your anxiety or your depression or your anger or your resentment. Doing the thought model forces you to reevaluate how you've been reacting to so many parts of your life. So when you start to do this, I'm going to ask you all to do one just to make sure you're all doing it properly and share it on the group as an example. It does take a few tries, so don't think you're going to get it right on the first time. It takes a few, you need to practice it a bit to make sure you're actually plugging in the right thought, the right emotion that's going to get you results. It does take practice to do this, and there's resistance around this, like I said, because it's much easier to be passive. It's much easier to blame the circumstance, whatever the circumstance is, than to actually step up and say, you know what? It's actually been my thoughts and my feelings that have been directing this all along, whether I've been conscious of it or not. Now you're conscious of it. So going in deep and intentionally taking responsibility will bring up resistance. Again, because it's much easier to be passive and to blame anybody or anything else. Could it be regarding our kids? Yes, it can. Anything, your kids, your spouse, your work, your parents, your siblings, your friends, your boss, any situation, anything happening in the world. Think of a circumstance. You know how in school we learned what a noun is? A noun is a person, place, or thing. Any person, place, or thing. Think of a circumstance that way. And they're not changeable. So if we're going to talk about your kids, for example, can't change your kids. We're going to talk about your spouse. You can't change your spouse. You can't change anybody unless they decide to make a change. And in the meantime, if you have issues or this relationship is problematic or you feel like it's constantly bringing you down or it's frustrating you, we can't make anybody change. What you can do always, what's in your power in the moment, is to change your perception and your reaction to a situation. We all feel like everybody has this sort of idea that everybody in our lives should know by now how we want to be treated. Our spouses, our kids, our relatives, our friends, everybody should know how I like to be treated. Everybody should know what upsets me. Everybody should know what triggers me and avoid it. But we all have these files in our brains for everybody in our lives. Like my husband should understand by now that I really hate when he leaves his socks by the bed, and he should never do that again. It irritates me. He should know I don't like that. My best friend should know that, when I'm PMSing, that she shouldn't call me and she shouldn't come near me. She should just leave me alone. We all have these little files for everybody in our lives and how we expect them to behave with us or how to treat us. The problem is we're the only ones with these files in our heads. We've never shared this information. We've never said, here's my expectation for how I expect to be treated. Here's my expectation for how I expect you to react when I'm feeling in this situation. And then even if we were to share with all the people in our lives, all these files we have for them in our brains, and said, right, here's your file Here's everything I've written down in terms of my expectation of how you need to understand me, read me, assume things about me, and then how I need you to behave around me. Even if you were to do that, there's something called free will. Nobody actually has to follow the file that you have created for them. It's basic. It's called free will. So again, so even if you were to give clear instructions, the responsibility still falls on you for how you want to be and how you want to feel and how you want to react. What that means is no one can ever make you unhappy without your decision to be unhappy. No one can ever make you sad without you deciding that you want to be sad. No one can ever make you angry without you deciding, I'm going to be angry. It's always your decision, because the same way that you can decide to react in a way that's angry, you can decide to react in a way that's calm. The same way that you can choose to react in a way that makes you sad, you can choose to react in a way that makes you feel empowered. You always have those options. Also, when we get to the emotional eating class, we'll talk about that a little bit more in terms of emotions specifically. So this can be very off-putting and sort of jarring for people that here I am, I've been always upset about something that somebody has done or said, but it's not actually their fault. It's because I decided I wanted to be sad or depressed or angry about it. They can say whatever they want to say. You're the one who has the power to make the decision of how whatever's being said or being done is going to affect you. Always. Again, this is easier said than done. It takes practice. It takes doing this thought model. It takes you being, I'm not going to say 100% conscious of catching all the thoughts that might bring you down, but you have to start being aware of the ones that are the biggest ones. If you have strong reactions to a person or to an event, these are the ones I would focus on first to reframe. So the socks are thrown there every day. Make a decision to be happy about it. So we can do a thought model on this. You want to do that? So I'm guessing this is your husband, right? Throwing the socks, like all husbands. So you would put your husband as the circumstance. Okay? Can't change him. He's the one that's there. He's your life partner, husband. So the circumstance is not throwing socks. Okay? That's just something that the circumstance is doing. But the circumstance is your husband. So you would write, I'm going to do that, husband in the first line and in the second line under circumstance. So he's throwing the socks, and probably there's other things he does that are annoying. So what is your thought when you walk into your room again and you see socks on the floor? What's the first thought that you have about that, Ruba? Probably some cursing, some version of fuck's sake, again, not again.
I'm gonna be happy about it.
Let's tell me, you're not happy about it now for sure. So tell me, what is your current thought about your husband throwing his socks?
Annoyed.
That's a feeling. So that's the second part. What's the thought?
I told him before and he's still doing it.
I told him before. And he's still doing it. So that's the first thought. Okay, and that makes you feel annoyed, you said.
Yes.
Okay, rightfully so. You've said it a million times. So what action then, when you're annoyed, what do you do when you're annoyed in this situation?
I don't pick them up.
You don't pick them up. Anything else that you do?
Fight again about it.
Fight again. Okay. So we can only, for each one of these categories, we can always only choose one thought, one feeling, or one action. So out of, I don't pick them up and fight again, which is the one do you think is the one that's the more problematic?
Problematic?
Yeah.
Fighting again.
Fighting again. So we say we fight again. And so then what's the result? You annoy, you fight, and what's the end result?
The socks are still there.
Socks are still there. Okay, so now we're gonna flip it to the other side. What, your husband is still your husband. Hasn't changed. He's still throwing the socks. What is the result you want? Right now, you're getting the socks are still there. They're still being thrown every day. What is the result that you want? And remember, you can't change him.
That's a hard one.
Hmm.
He's not gonna pick up the socks. So what,
Okay,
what would the
fair
result
enough.
be?
So what is the result that you want?
Not to see the socks.
Not to see the socks. So there could be a bit of experimentation with this process. We'll work with this result and see where it gets us. Not to see the socks. Okay. So what has to happen for you not to see the socks? We're going to work it back. Okay. Not to see the socks.
Okay.
What's the action? Right now you're fighting. That's your action. And the socks are still there. So if you don't want to see the socks, what do you think the action has to be before here?
Me picking up the socks.
You picking up the socks. Currently, you feel annoyed because you think I've told you a million times not to do this. So in order for you to go pick up the socks, because you're not going to do it when you're annoyed, what feeling do you think you need to have in order to willingly go and pick up the socks?
Acceptance.
Acceptance. That works. So what thought do you think you need to have that's going to give you the feeling of acceptance?
He's not gonna change.
He's not going to change. How does that sit with you?
Not well.
Not well. So if the answer is not well, we need to do it again. So this is how you gauge if the thought model, if you've done it in the way that's serving you or not. If the end result and the feelings and the thoughts, no, doesn't sit well with me, we go from scratch again. Okay. So the first part is not going to change. He's still throwing his socks. You're still annoyed. You still fight. The socks are still there. So let's start with a different result. You said right now the result you want is not to see the socks. Is there potentially another result that you would still be just as happy with?
Me being okay with the socks being there.
Me being okay with, so you still see them, but you're not annoyed. You still see them, but you're okay with it. Okay. So see socks, but okay with it. So, and what's the action that's going to precede that?
Nothing.
Nothing. You're going to just look at them.
Yes.
You're not going to pick them up and you're not going to fight with him.
Yes.
Okay. So you're just going to look at the socks. And what's the feeling that has to precede that?
Probably a lot of resentment.
Okay. So if the feeling is resentment, do you think you're going to be okay with looking at the socks?
No.
No. So we need to choose a different feeling. What is your, what do you think the thought you have to have is that's going to give you the feeling that's going to have you totally calm and totally okay to see the socks? What's the thought that you need to be thinking?
It's not gonna take time. I can do it.
It's not going to take time. I can do it. How does that make you feel?
All right.
Just all right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than annoyed for sure, right? We're trying to work up, there's something called an emotional scale. So definitely all right is better than annoyed. And so when you're feeling all right, what are you going to go do? Are you going to leave them or are you going to go pick them up?
Pick them up.
Pick them up. And then the end result is what? You don't see the socks.
I don't see exactly.
You don't
I
see
don't
the
see the
socks.
socks.
How does that sit with you?
Better, but I think in that case, I think I've lost
Why do you think
because
you
I have,
lost?
because I have more things to do.
Right. But remember, you can't change him. The only way to technically, according to how you're thinking now, win would be for him to pick up his own socks. And since we all know that this obviously is some kind of genetic default setting in all the men, they're never going to pick up their socks. So, and I guess we have to also accept that unless we actually decide to leave the socks, they're just going to keep piling up. And at some point, you might decide for a week, you know what, I'm not touching these socks. I've said it over and over and over again. I'm not. But at some point, that pile of socks is going to irritate you more than the fact that he doesn't pick up his socks. If you're a neat freak and tidy like most of us are. So you will go and pick them up. So
Yes.
since he's not going to change, those socks are still going to be thrown. You, as the one who's responsible for your home and your household, know that whether you do it on the spot or you do it a week later, the responsibility is going to fall to you to pick them up. So how can you do that without feeling annoyed? What do you need to think about?
Accept it and let it pass.
Say that again.
Accept it and let it pass.
Accept, and how does that make you feel? So acceptance, and your action is, I will let it pass. I'm going to pick up the socks.
I think it's just a matter of picking your battles.
Is there something that you can think about your husband instead of, I told him a million times? Is there something that you can think about your husband where the feeling that that will get triggers next is one of empathy or compassion?
Yes.
Like what?
He's tired from work. He doesn't want to do it. He's tired.
Okay. So when you see his socks, instead of thinking, I've told him a million times, instead you think, you know what? He's had a long day at work. He's really tired. What feeling comes up for you when you think that?
Empathy.
So you feel empathetic towards him. You don't feel annoyed anymore.
Yes.
Okay. And when you
No.
feel empathetic because he's had a long, hard day and he just decided, you know, this is my safe space at home where my wife takes care of me. I'm just going to throw my socks on the floor because I spent the whole day being in control, being the boss, taking on the responsibility, taking on the stress of making sure I'm the leader of this household. So I'm just going to come home and let go of my socks. And I know my wife is caring and understanding and empathetic. So what are you going to do when you're feeling that empathy?
The perspective changes.
You're going to pick up the socks.
Right.
And how do you feel when you're picking up?
Without feeling upset.
Without
feeling upset.
That's how you change your thoughts, and that's how you get the difference. The result is still, I mean, in this case, very much the same. We really haven't changed. You're still picking up the socks. But in the process of picking up the socks, you've let go of being annoyed at your husband. You've let go of the resentment. Maybe you're going to let go of the fact that you feel like you're constantly, you know, being used to pick up the socks. And instead, you're building up a thought process where you're empathetic and compassionate and understanding towards your husband, where hopefully you're not going to fight about this again.
Yeah.
It takes work. This is not going to come to any of us automatically, right? It takes work. It takes, especially when the socks example is a really good one because it is ongoing, right? It's not something that happens every once in a while. There's always something in a relationship with a spouse, with something at work that is ongoing. So I recommend you choose the thing that is ongoing and really, really causing you, it just you know, gets in the way of your day. Maybe you're in a good mood, maybe things are going well, and then the same thing keeps happening every single day, and it just really throws you off. Now you know that you have the power to not let it throw you off. While simultaneously, especially when it comes to relationships, removing some of that resentment, some of that those things that can really over time build up and sort of tear down and erode relationships, especially. Does this, can you see, all of you, how this works more or less after we've gone through this example? So you didn't necessarily, I mean, Yoruba, your first answer was, do I make a decision to be happy about it, right? Potentially, but how are you going to get to that? You can't force it. You can't just say without changing the thought, right? You can't have the thought of, I tell him to do this every single day, and then just force yourself to be happy about it. You need to get and change the thought. How can you be happy about it? Okay, I'm going to stop thinking that. Instead, I'm going to think every day that he's tired, he's had a long day at work. That's what shifts. But forcing positive thoughts, I'm sure you've seen this everywhere, just forcing yourself to be positive, forcing yourself to, think happy thoughts all the time doesn't work unless you're understanding the root cause of the original thought. And that in order to truly feel a transformation in your feelings does require a true transformation in the original thought. Otherwise, it's just temporary. I mean, if you didn't do this, how long do you think you would be happy picking up the socks if deep down you were still annoyed at him? When you hadn't changed it to compassion and empathy, it won't last long. But when the feeling is empathy and compassion, every single time you go and pick up that socks, you're going to think, my husband is tired and busy and works all day at work, and I empathize with that and I have compassion for that. So I'm going to pick up his socks happily. End of story. Your husband is still the same. He's still going to throw the socks. We haven't changed him, right? You've changed your perspective. You've changed how you are going to react to the situation in a way that works for you, because then this also up levels your level of consciousness, right? Up levels the way that you behave. This is how you process the negative emotion of annoyance, right? This is one way of processing emotions. We've changed an annoying feeling, which is potentially eroding inside the longer you have it because it creates resentment. You're going to shift from that feeling to empathy and compassion, which are harmonious, calming, alkalizing emotions. Rania, yes, changing the thought is really calming. Yes. And there's nothing passive about it. When you think about the kind of brain work that you had to do to get to this change, it's anything but passive. It takes work for you to go through that process and for you to acknowledge where you have to take responsibility and where you have to take a stand and say, right, this reaction is my responsibility. How I view the world is my responsibility. How I react to people, places, and things is completely 100% up to me. Does that mean 100% of the time you're going to be able to do that? No, we have such deep programming for default settings and blaming people and the being annoyed and being resentful. Changing that, just like what you're doing now with detoxing your body, is definitely a process where there's a few steps forward and one step back. Few steps, like, what about we've figured out? And she might be happy picking up the socks, and then next week we're like, she'll go back to her annoyed feeling. And that would be normal because it takes time to reprogram.
Anna, I wanted just to ask you, going through the circumstances and going how to the result, the one we normally have. When we move to the other side, we first look at the result that we want, and then go through the thought, feeling, and action, or you go all the way, you go result, action, feeling, and then thought.
You do it in the reverse.
Oh, okay, all the way.
You think of the result, because you can see then it's very clear for you once you start doing the practice, you see that, oh, this is the result I'm getting now. That's not what I want. So then it forces you to think, what do I actually want?
When you went through the one with Ruga, just hearing it at the beginning, I'm like, أنا ماليش علاقة بالموضوع, بس I'm like, I was so anxious just, listening to it. And then I felt very calm with the result, with the way the result that she would want, and just listening to it was very kida. And I felt Hata, her body was like much calmer.
Her body language shifted.
Yeah.
I wanted to interfere with the action.
Yeah.
I wanted to propose an action, but I thought it's not my place to say.
No, what would you have her do? Instead, you mean of picking up?
Maybe she already tried it before, but I would. This is what I did. I put a special basket for my husband's socks in a place very close to where he drops his socks. So instead, I tell him, listen, I know that you do it automatic, so how about you do it automatic inside the box?
And did it work?
Longer box. Yes, it did work.
So let's say we were having this conversation with you, the same one about the socks, right? You could have chosen that as your action or inaction.
But I wouldn't be sure it would work though. at the
That's it.
time I did it.
You wouldn't
Yeah.
be sure that it would work. So let's say you had tried it and then let's say it didn't work, you would need to go back to the thought model
Yeah.
and redo it again and see what kind of result would get.
Yeah, I would.
So what
I'm having a
I-
same struggle with my daughter, but not about socks, about other things.
Yeah. I mean, it seems the men, it's just the men and the socks. I don't get it, but it's just the thing. So what I would like everybody to do in the next few days is to choose a circumstance in your life. And as you see, it can be something that seems as small as somebody throwing socks, right? It can be as small as that, or it can be as big as, I've had women come in here and talk about leaving their jobs, talk about leaving their spouse, and we went through that process for that as well. So something as simple as socks, something as huge, life-changing as maybe a career change, and everything else in between, if you want a different result, can be resolved using a thought model, or at least you can give you a different perspective initially using a thought model. So I want you all in the next few days to pick something, at least one, but if you want to do more, please feel free to do as many as you want. Share, write this out on your notebook and on a piece of paper. Take a photo of it and share it on the group so that I can see your thought process, and just to make sure that you're doing it properly, just to make sure you're actually not inserting a feeling for a thought or vice versa, and not forcing through a feeling necessarily to get the result that you want, so that you can become confident in this process. And literally, when I first learned this, I was walking around with a little notebook. Anywhere I go, if something irritates me, if something I'm not happy about something, or you start to catch your thoughts, I would just jot it down really quickly in the moment to transform the thought. Right now, after I've been doing it for a while, I'll do like maybe intentionally once a week. I'll sort of look at my week and think, right, what wasn't working this week? Like, where was I having a feeling that wasn't really serving me? Where was I getting a result that is really not what I want in my life? And I might do like 15 or 20 minutes of just a specific 3 or 4 specific situations during that week. But at the beginning, you sort of want to build up this muscle of catching your thoughts, because 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, when the majority of them are not true, when the majority of them are just you having a random thought about something, this is incredibly powerful, because it's taking your life in one direction and you have the power to move the needle completely. So give yourself the time and space in the next week or so to have a notebook on hand, jot this down, go through this process, because it can be really powerful, and at the most basic level, very calming for the nervous system to be able to reevaluate and choose an emotion that serves you versus one that sort of takes you down a rabbit hole and just doesn't give you the right result for your life. So please share on the group. If you have something obviously that's more private, you don't want to share your thought process in the group, then please email me and I will let you know either, right, this sounds great, it sounds like you got the thought process correctly, or I'll walk you through how it needs to be tweaked so that you can actually make the practice effective.
Dana, can I ask a question about the eating plan?
Yes, of course.
So today I don't have sprouts or I don't have mushrooms. I ran out of all these. I have eggplant and zucchini. Is it okay to do this for lunch?
Of course.
I couldn't even find baby spinach. I tried to buy them in the morning and I couldn't find them.
Yep, I couldn't find spinach today either. When you find yourself with things either out of stock or out of season, and it will happen, especially in Egypt. Like if you live in countries like Dubai and all of these places, you have everything all year round. Europe, North America. So this is perfectly fine. If something is out of season or out of stock, you don't get stuck. What is available to you? Eggplant is available to you. I got zucchini today. I got bell peppers today. Today is also your potato day, so you have potatoes.
Yeah.
Yep. So you have potatoes for
But
dinner.
not for lunch, or is
No,
it
not
for lunch?
Not for lunch, for dinner.
For dinner. Yeah.
So also sweet potatoes, also butternut squash or arah if you want to do that. So you have other options. And when you find things are out of season, use what is available to you. And then once the season comes back in, for us, typically it's the winter season where we have really great broccoli, really great spinach, really great Brussels sprout and asparagus where they're abundant. Then load up on them when they're readily available. When they're not, use everything else. It all works. Will the regular potato spike my sugar more than the sweet potato? No. No potatoes spike blood sugar. They're all actually very balancing. Once we take all the other factors that create sugar imbalances out of the picture, so once you take the bread and the pasta and the caffeine and the high animal food intake and the high fat intake, once you take them out of the equation, your fruits will and potatoes will balance your blood sugar eventually. Any other questions, ladies? All right, so I'll be waiting for two things tomorrow and over the weekend and into Sunday to see your thought models. And if you haven't yet reached out to me to let me know what plan you're planning on doing next after the 9 days are over, I need you also please to let me know that. If you're confused, if you're not sure what you should be doing after Friday, also reach out to me so I can walk you through that. So you sort of have two things to do for homework, which is to share a thought model and to share your plan for next week.
Then I have a question.
Yes, please.
Can we like play around with the recipes within the guidelines? Not not follow strictly.
100%. So the first 9 days are just you understanding the process and understanding the baseline. Once you understand it, 100% play around. So make the different mix of vegetables, add the herbs, add the things that you want, roast some, boil some, blend some. You can definitely play around with it now that you understand the basic foundation.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
When are we gonna reintroduce animal protein?
So
Are we gonna do that?
yeah, this depends on what you're choosing to do after Friday. So Friday is your all juicing day and the last day of your first 9-day cycle. So and I'll talk about this again tomorrow, but my recommendation, and I've also put this in your emails, that if you have an ongoing chronic condition that you've had for a year or more, then definitely my recommendation for you is to repeat the 9 days because you want to continue the deep healing so that you can continue to flush out the toxins, you can continue to feel healing power. If you don't have a diagnosed condition, and let's say you had minor symptoms, like you just came into the program and your issue was low energy, maybe, lack of sleep, maybe just headaches, maybe it's like a little bit of PMS every month, you have a little bit more leeway and that you can choose to go into one of two options, either the hybrid cleanse, and you have the document for that in the very first email that you received.
Yeah.
Or you can go into clean eating, which is what we did in the first 3 days, which is basically fruits, vegetables, and a little bit of animal protein once a day. And I just said that in trying to make this decision, I need you to be very honest with yourself. I'm not inside your body, sort of feeling how the process is going. Only you can really gauge it. Am I starting to heal a little bit? Is the process just scratching the surface for me? I know I have a chronic condition. What works best, what will work best for me is to go continue deep with the 9 days. But you have to understand that whichever one you choose to go deep with another 9 days, or the hybrid, which is a little bit sort of slower paced detox, or the clean eating, which is the slowest of all the 3 options, they will all work. The only difference between the 3 is the intensity and the speed of healing. So if you need to see results faster, you repeat the 9 days. If you're good with stabilizing and you feel like in order for you to sustain it, you want to do clean eating, then you do that. In all cases, every single week, I'm going to be checking in with you because you might change your mind. You might do clean eating for a week and then decide, actually, I was feeling a lot better on the 9 days. I want to speed up my healing. The 3rd week, I'm going to go back to the 9 days. So from now until the end of the program, this is why we have the 3 months. You need to have that time and space to experiment. You can do clean eating for a week. You can go to the 9 days again. You can do the hybrid and see how your body responds to each level of detoxing. We're going to do juicing, which is one of the highest levels of detoxing on Friday. Some ladies will choose to go and do 3, 4, 1 week of juicing also to really push their detoxing deeper. And that's also fine. So this is where I've sort of held your hand up until this point. I'm still here to support you, but I can't make that decision for every single one of you because I'm not in your body. You are. And taking back control of your health and becoming sovereign in your body means you start to make those decisions for yourself. And then the body always responds and always responds properly. The body never does anything wrong. Listen to what happens if you decide to move from 9 days to clean eating. Listen to what happens if you do 9 days and then another 9 days, and react accordingly.
I have one last question.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, don't.
The problem is I'm on hormonal therapy and I take a hormonal injection every 3 months prescribed by my doctor. And sometimes it feels like even if I'm healing, whatever I'm taking of these hormones is hindering me feeling better or hot flashes going away. I don't know if it's related to the hormones I take every day or of course when I take the injection I'm gonna get the reactions I usually do, but I'm not sure I'll ever heal until I'm done with these, and it's gonna be this maybe 4 years from now.
Okay. 2 things I'm going to say about that. One, this is breast cancer, right?
Yeah, used to be.
Okay,
Not
so
anymore.
of all the ladies I've worked with who are exactly where you are, who had breast cancer and then were taking hormonal therapy, obviously they were taking it for 4 or 5 years and it wasn't something that they wanted to stop. And they were having all the symptoms that you're referring to. And I don't know if you saw my post about the lady who you haven't, I'll share it with you. So she did this. She continued to do the 9 days over and over and over and over and over again. I have another lady also who did a testimonial. I can share that with you. And all of the side effects of their medication went away.
Really?
All of it. And all of their test results, when they would go and do regular testing with their doctors, and this is the post that I shared, the doctor couldn't believe that out of all his patients, she had the best test results out of everybody because she was doing this program, because she changed how you ate. So they got rid of the hot flashes, they got rid of the night sweats, they got rid of, pain or whatever side effects of this medication was all gone. And I'll definitely share those 2 testimonials with you.
Okay.
So the
Thank
other
you.
thing I want to say about that is I'm going to catch your thought here.
Yeah.
So what did you say? I can't heal taking this medication, right? You said something like that.
I said I'm scared that it might be interfering with my healing.
Right. That's a thought. That's not the truth.
Yeah.
So I would recommend
No.
you do a thought model on this, because the mind and the body are always interconnected. If your mind doesn't believe that you can heal, you can juice on nothing but juice for the next 6 months and you won't heal. We need to get your mind on board with this. So because you also said a few things at the beginning of the call when it was just the 2 of us before it cut. So I'm anxious. I'm always anxious. Those are also thoughts. I'm afraid that it's not going to work, or I can't heal as long as I'm taking hormones. Any variation of that's going through your head right now, I just give you 4 examples for thought models right there. Those are not truths. Those are thoughts that just happen to be going through your head and you just happen to be accepting them.
Mm-hmm.
We need to transform those.
Okay.
All right. If I forget by tomorrow, please tag me in the group so I can share the 2 testimonials with you.
All right.
All right.
Dana, one last question.
Please.
Don't you feel that you felt isolated socially by following this type of eating?
I still do, but it's my health. I mean, people who are going to criticize me or mock me or anything, are they the ones responsible for how I feel when I wake up sick or if I develop a disease? What's their opinion going to do for me then? You do have
What
to
I mean
develop
is
a
if you're
thick skin.
invited somewhere, for example, if
When
you're invited
when
somewhere.
I'm deep detoxing, and I will still do a deep detox a few times a year, I just don't go anywhere. For the rest of the time, because I've healed, right? I haven't taken a medication in 11 years. I haven't had a significant symptom in 11 years. I haven't needed to see a doctor in 11 years. I know that I've built up resilience in my body that if I have a family outing or something, you know, I can have a little bit of the traditional foods. I can have something that I know that night, in the worst that will happen, it will give me a little bit of a night sweat. When I travel, I definitely like to enjoy things, but I have a baseline that I live by and I always return to. Those outings, the traveling that never becomes a normal ever again. It's always an exception. But you can only do that when you have created a completely brand new, solid foundation where the body is strong and resilient. Until
And how
then,
do you know you've reached that?
if you're on medication, your first sign obviously is you're off your medication.
Mm.
That's the biggest proof that your body has healed. You're off your medication. Whatever other symptom you have reverses and doesn't come back. So from the most minor symptoms that any of you can have to the bigger symptoms that you can have, when they're gone, and then they're gone not just for a day or two. When I say they're gone, that means 3 or 6 months you're symptom free. Then you can start to experiment. Okay, so if I go out today and I'm invited to my mother's, you know, and she عملت, you know, today macarona bechamel. So I'm going to have a little bit of my mom's macarona. What will happen? When your body is that clear, when the signals are not confused inside, when you go and consume something that is not optimally healthy, your body will let you know. Within 10 minutes to 3 days, your body will let you know how that food that you just had really works or doesn't work inside your body. But beyond that, you know that this is just something you're going to indulge in or enjoy in the moment because you want to be part of the family outing. You want to be part of the, maybe it's Eid, maybe it's an occasion or something, and you do it and then it's done. And this is why it's very different than diet, because with the diet, you might find yourself in that situation and then you do it and then it triggers all the addictions and triggers all the cravings. And then you continue to go back into that, maybe a week, maybe 10 days, maybe it takes you all the way back down 3 months. And I've seen that happen with people who diet. So there's always the mindset that I can choose to eat whatever I want, whenever I want. I'm always going to choose what's optimally healthy 90 to 95% of the time after I've healed. So nothing is forced. It all goes back to how your body responds. And every time you eat is going to be an opportunity for you to sort of collect data. Here's what eating, you know, macarona bechamel does to me. Here's what having coffee does to me now. Do I want to keep doing this or not? Knowing the potential that these kinds of foods can have on me if I bring them in back regularly. Because if you do bring them back in the way you were eating them before you came into the program, you will re-trigger your symptoms and your condition. So the same way that you can reverse diabetes 100%, come off all the medication, have stabilized blood sugar, if you go back to eating the way that developed the diabetes, you will develop diabetes again. It's the body responding. But generally at the beginning, you do have to have a thick skin. You do have to prioritize you. You do have to prioritize your healing. And anybody who has anything to say about it, or anybody who has anything to criticize, just remind yourself, you know, where were these people when I got sick? They all have something to say now that I'm trying to heal. Where were you all when I actually got sick? Nobody opened their mouths when I was eating all the food that made me sick. And now suddenly I don't want to eat this food. I want to heal. Everybody has an opinion. Thick skin. Build up the thick skin because you're the only one responsible for your health.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, ladies. Think about your thought models, share your thought models, share your next step plan with me, and I will see you all here again tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a wonderful rest of your day, ladies.